Hi, how are you guys doing today? So, I have a story that is actually one of my favorite stories. This is one that I really love to read, and I'm going to share that with you guys today. And in this story, there is a little girl who has a really hard time when she starts school. There's some kids who aren't very nice to her. However, there is a teacher that makes her feel really special, and she's the music teacher. And we're talking about music this next few weeks. We're going to be learning about some different music and some different instruments. So we're going to read the story, and the name of the story is Chrysanthemum. That's a flower. You see her standing beside the flower. Now, do you guys remember, what is this part of the book called? What's this called? That's the cover, the front cover. And what do we call the back of it? Do you remember? Back cover. And this one, you remember, we have one of these too. They go down the center of our back. What is that called? Is that the spine? And then we've talked about the author and the illustrator. And in this story, they're the same person. Do you remember the author is the person who does what? They write the words for the story. And the illustrator is the one who draws the pictures. And in this case, they are both by Kevin Hennix. So we're going to read Chrysanthemum. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. "She's perfect," said her mother. "Absolutely," said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. "Her name must be everything she is," said her mother. "Her name must be absolutely perfect," said her father. And it was Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. And you remember, we said chrysanthemum is the type of flower, right? And that's what we saw on the front cover. So if you look here, we have a bunch of different pictures of chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew. And when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. Look right there, she's saying, "I love my name." So you see, she got very tall. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up in the morning. She loved the way it sounded when her father called her in for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Do you guys remember, what does whisper mean? Whispers when we talk really soft, right? Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. Gotta look real close there. That says Chrysanthemum right there. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on her birthday cake. There it is again, Chrysanthemum. And she loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself with her fat orange crown. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect, and then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. She ran all the way. "Hooray!" said Chrysanthemum. "School!" But when Mrs. Chudd took roll call, everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. So Mrs. Chudd's taking roll call. We have Don and Eve. We have Louis and Al and Les and Kay and Max, Sam and Tom and Pat and Bill and Sue. We have Ken and Joe and Rita and Victoria and Chrysanthemum. It's so long, said Joe. It scarcely fits on your name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. You're named after a flower. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. Do you guys remember what wilted means? Remember we talked about how when something is blooming and the flower is nice and bright and it's standing tall, and when it wilts, it's kind of sad. It kind of falls over like this. And do you remember what dreadful means? It's not something that's good, right? Dreadful means you maybe think it's bad or awful or you don't like it, right? Originally, she thought her name was perfect. Now she thinks it's dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Mrs. Chudd that Chrysanthemum's name was spelled with 13 letters. That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet, Victoria explained. Thank you for sharing with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chudd. Now put your head down. It doesn't seem like those kids are being very nice to her, does it? If I had a name like yours, I'd change it, Victoria said, as the students lined up to go home. I wish I could, Chrysanthemum thought miserably. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. My name is too long. It scarcely fits on a name tag, and I'm named after a flower. Oh, pish, said her mother. Your name is beautiful, and precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome, said her father. It's everything you are, said her mother. Absolutely perfect, said her father. So he used some big words there, huh? Like precious and priceless, fascinating and winsome. Do you think he's saying good things about her name? I think he is. He's saying he really loves it and he thinks she should too. Chrysanthemum felt much better after her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. Do you know what parcheesi is? Some of you might. You may have played it before. It's a board game. When you see that on the table there, that's the game they were playing. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane. It was an extremely pleasant dream. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper. She walked to school as slowly as she could. She dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, 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 she wrote. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria, as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. Remember, dreadful is not good. She thought it was bad. Do you guys remember what wilted is? Maybe pretend like your body wilts. It's kind of different, huh? The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, A chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in a garden with worms and other dirty things. Thank you for sharing with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chudd. Now put your head down. just cannot believe your name, Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. Neither can I, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Do you know what it means to be miserable or miserably? It means really, really sad. She's really sad. Those girls aren't being very nice to her, are they? Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me. Oh, pish, said her mother. They're just jealous. And envious and begrudging and discontented and jaundiced, said her father. Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours, said her mother. After all, it's absolutely perfect. So to be jealous means you wish you had something that somebody else had. Have you guys ever felt that way? And her parents think that the girls are being mean because they're jealous of her name. What do you think? Should we see what happens in the story? Chrysanthemum felt a trifle bit better after her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. Do you know what trifle means? She felt a trifle bit better. The day before, she felt much better. So that means she felt a lot better, right? Trifle means just a little. She didn't feel a whole lot better. She felt just a little bit better. That looks kind of like a scary dream, huh? That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Can you guys see what's happening? What does she have? She has an umbrella and it's raining. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and her good luck charms. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school. She stopped and stared at each and every flower. Chrysanthemum, 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 the flowers seemed to say. What do you see there? Who's that? Do you guys remember? That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. The students were speechless. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder. They went out of their way to make a nice impression. So an indescribable wonder would mean she was so good, so wonderful, that they didn't even know how to describe it. They didn't have words for it. That's what indescribable means. It's kind of a big word, huh? Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. Then she assigned the roles for the class musical. Victoria was chosen as the dainty fairy queen. Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess. Jo was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger. And Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. Do you guys know what a daisy is? A daisy is another kind of flower. Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy. Jo, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. What's so humorous? Asked Mrs. Twinkle. Chrysanthemum, was the answer. Her name is so long, said Jo. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. She's named after a flower. My name is long, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is? Said Joe. My name would scarcely fit on a name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is? Said Rita, pointing. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower, too. You are? Said Victoria. Yes, said Mrs. Twinkle. My name is Delphinium. Delphinium Twinkle. And if my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect. Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed. She beamed. Beaming means she has a big smile. Do you see her big smile? She bloomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Blooming is when a flower opens up. So often a flower is all closed up before it blooms. And then as it gets brighter or it gets ready and it's ready to open, it opens up and you'll have a really pretty bloom. And that's what they're saying Chrysanthemum did. It made her feel so good that she just lit up, right? Joe, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. Call me Marigold, said Joe. I'm Carnation, said Rita, pointing. My name is Lily of the Valley. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. Do you see her big smile in that picture? So longingly is kind of like they were talking about when her parents were saying she was jealous, right? That the girls were jealous of her name. It's kind of what longingly means. They all decided they wanted a name like her, huh? So they named themselves after flowers. So this is the epilogue. This is what happened after the story was done. Overall, the class musical was a huge success. Chrysanthemum was absolutely perfect as a daisy. Victoria made the only mistake. She completely forgot her lines as the dainty fairy queen. Chrysanthemum thought it was wildly funny, and she giggled throughout the entire dance of the flowers. Eventually, Mrs. Twinkle gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and of course, she named her Chrysanthemum. See the baby up there? So I want you guys to think about what happened in the story and what were some of the things that Chrysanthemum felt, right? And who was it that helped her to feel better and to know that she really did love her name? I hope you guys enjoyed the story, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye-bye.